Emergency transmission! After featuring on Season 2 of Star Trek Discovery, Captain Christopher Pike is now receiving his very own show. Anson Mount will continue in the role alongside Romijn as his first officer, number 1, and Ethan Peck will also continue on as the young Mr. Spock. The original USS Enterprise will boldly go once more in a series called Star Trek Strange New Worlds.
Strange New
Worlds.
You asked. We listened. It's happening.
In honor of the announcement, we're abandoning all previous plans and will instead bring you a very special episode all about the good Captain Pike. How did he go from this to this? Those strange new worlds will fill in some adventurous gaps. Let's explore what we know already, because we know a lot. Welcome to a special episode of SYFY WIRE's Warp Factor. Christopher Pike, this is your life. Engage! And in honor of Pike, I will add... hit it. Prepare for a mission briefing that will encompass the entire life of Christopher Pike! We'll be drawing from the original series episode, The Menagerie, as well as Season 2 of Star Trek Discovery. That's a pretty wide Tholian web, so because of this, you may not be caught up with all of those details, especially Discovery Season 2. So, because of this, all crew to spoiler stations, and red alert! Christopher Pike was born in the city of Mojave on Earth and eventually attended Starfleet Academy, where he received an F in astrophysics.
That big red F. That was my failing grade in astrophysics at the Academy.
He served on various starships until he became first officer to Captain Robert April on the USS Enterprise. In 2250, Pike would assume command of that ship and was later referred to by Number 1 as the most heavily decorated fighting captain in Starfleet. Pike and the Enterprise eventually wound up on the planet Talos IV, where he was kidnapped and toyed with by the telepathic Talosians, who would come to deem humans unsuitable for breeding. Nice, very nice. It is here that Pike would meet and fall for a woman named Vina, whose appearance had been altered by the Talosians. He manages to escape, and the planet was then made off-limits on threat of death. Pike and the Enterprise would not take part in the Klingon War, as they were ordered to stay out of combat and act as a last resort scenario. Pike didn't like this, but Admiral Cornwell tells him later that it was because Christopher Pike was the very best of Starfleet and that spirit had to survive. Following the war, the Enterprise experiences massive malfunctions and is unable to voyage further without repairs. Pike takes command of the recently captainless USS Discovery and leads that crew to solve the mystery of the Red Angel and the Seven Signals.
Helm, plug in the coordinates.
He also assists in what becomes another search for Spock, ending up briefly back on Talos IV and seeing Vina again, before seeing his unfortunate future thanks to a time crystal within the Klingon monastery on Boreth. He remains unafraid. Once repaired, Pike takes command of the Enterprise once more and helps his friends of the Discovery face down a Section 31 fleet possessed by the entity known as Control, which is at this point completely out of control. He helps cover up what happens to Discovery next, which is why you never hear about that ship again. That's the reason. Following more adventures on the Enterprise with Number 1 and Mr. Spock in the new series that was just announced, Pike eventually gives command of the USS Enterprise over to James Tiberius Kirk. Later, during an inspection tour of a cadet vessel, Pike experiences the very accident he foresaw on Boreth years prior. He manages to save all of the cadets in danger, but ends up with massive injuries and is confined to a life support chair. He's only able to communicate by way of flashing lights. After receiving a message from the Talosians, Mr. Spock, now first officer on the Enterprise under Captain Kirk, defies all orders and decides to bring the disabled Pike to that planet. Thanks to Spock's actions, Christopher Pike is able to spend the rest of his life on that planet with Vina, the both of them living in blissful illusion. He may still be there. I I wish I was there. I'm not. Whatever. I'm good. Life is good.
Look at his eyes uncovered!
Does Christopher Pike's journey in Star Trek canon have plenty of secrets to explore? Was Quark really proud of his own advertisement?
Come to Quark's Rush's Fun. Come right now. Don't walk. Run!
I'm sold. A big yes to both questions. Pike was technically the first captain that Star Trek ever had, with Jeffrey Hunter appearing as the character in the show's very first pilot, The Cage. That pilot was rejected by the network, and a new pilot was created called Where No Man Has Gone Before. That episode would keep Leonard Nimoy as Mr. Spock, but ditch pretty much everyone else. Pike was replaced with Kirk, and we went on from there. Scenes from The Cage were seen in season 1 of the original series, however, as a ton of footage from that episode was used for the season 1 two-parter, The Menagerie. This episode features Spock's mission to return the disfigured Pike to Talos 4, and on the way there, everyone watches transmissions from Talos 4 of their previous mission. They pretty much just sit around watching scenes from The Cage on a giant screen. Transmissions from the planet have multiple camera angles, actors, effects, everything. Talosians did a great job with those transmissions. Really good, really good. Because of the events of the Menagerie, Christopher Pike and his command of the Enterprise prior to Kirk became Trek canon. Season 1 of Star Trek Discovery, going way later, taking place before any of those events but after the first mission to Talos 4, staying with me, reminds us that Pike is still around, with his name appearing in a databank when Commander Saru researches great captains in the episode Choose Your Pain. Christopher Pike would become the new captain of the Discovery in Season 2 of Discovery, now played by Anson Mount. The reason that the Enterprise is experiencing malfunctions in this time is blamed on the holographic communication devices constantly used on Discovery, so Pike has a chat with Number 1 all about it. Played in The Cage and The Menagerie by Majel Barrett, Number 1 is now played by Rebecca Romijn. In any case, Pike has Number 1 rip the holographic systems out of the Enterprise, partially because he never liked them anyway. That's why we don't see them on the Enterprise of the original series. Yep, that's the reason. That's the only reason. Anson Mount's Pike, as well as Number 1 and Ethan Peck's Spock, sailed off on a newly fully functional Enterprise at the season's end, and they would all feature on multiple episodes of short treks. Now, the name Robert April, shown in the Season 2 Discovery opener Brother to be the first captain of the Enterprise that Pike served under, and also featuring in Star Trek the Animated Series episode The Counterclock Incident, is significant. This was the name of the first captain in the very first pitch ever written for Star Trek by series creator Gene Roddenberry. Robert April was described as a space-age Horatio Hornblower, and his ship was named the Yorktown. Things would eventually change, though April, Pike, and Kirk all ended up canon in the end. Pike's legacy and name would live on into the treks of the 24th century, with Benjamin Sisko of Deep Space Nine receiving the Christopher Pike Medal of Valor.
Starfleet Command is proud to present you the Christopher Pike Medal of Valor. Congratulations, Ben.
I have yet to receive that honor. I wonder why. DS9 also made mention of a place named Pike City on the planet Cestus 3, where you can see a real baseball game, and Star Trek The Next Generation features a shuttle named after Pike in the episode The Most Toys. Damn that fajo. Christopher Pike would also be featured in the Kelvin Timeline films, appearing in both the 2009 Star Trek as well as Star Trek Into Darkness. He is played by Bruce Greenwood both times, and in this altered timeline, he's a mentor and sort of a surrogate father figure to James Kirk. He dies in the second film, partially thanks to the schemes of his mentor, Admiral Marcus, aka Admiral Robocop, because Peter Weller. Freeze, punk! What's left to discover for Christopher Pike? Strange new worlds, of course. Freeze, punk. Freeze, punk. Computer, freeze that punk.
Earl Grey never fails.
Earl Grey never fails. And Christopher Pike, when played by Anson Mount, doesn't fail to give us memorable quotes. The Pike line that stands out in front of all others, for me anyway, comes from the Discovery episode Saints of Imperfection, when Ensign Sylvia Tilly is in trouble. As Pike says, Starfleet is a promise.
I give my life for you, you give your life for me. And nobody gets left behind. Ensign Sylvia Tilly is out there, and she has every right to expect us. We keep our promises.
Long may Captain Pike continue to keep those promises. Pike leaves no one behind, and he never fails. Much like Earl Grey.
The ship is yours, Captain.
All right, then. Hit it.
There's obviously many adventures left in store for Captain Christopher Pike on the new series, which will supposedly be more episodic in nature than other recent Star Trek series. We'll get plenty more of the snazzy new Enterprise from Discovery, as well as more of those bright and bold new uniforms too. Not only will Number 1 and Mr. Spock be along for the ride, but staying in this time period opens up possibilities to continue other storylines with characters and actors that Discovery has now left behind, including James Frain as Sarek and Mia Kirshner as Amanda Grayson. Though the events of the original series somewhat limits possible interactions they could have with their son Spock, they're both still heavily involved in Federation and Vulcan politics. Now, if things go Klingon, then Shazad Latif's Ash Tyler could come into play, and so could Mary Chieffo as Klingon Chancellor L'Rell, who most definitely has stories left to tell. Tukud Mo. Speaking of characters who have stories left to tell, Crusher Watch! Crusher Watch! Not born yet. She won't be on the new show. Makes sense.
Hailing frequencies open.
Our hailing frequencies are now open. Be sure to let us know what you hope to see in this exciting new Trek series, and as always, be sure to call out certain Trek episodes that you'd like to see us cover. Many viewers are really showing the love for Deep Space Nine, which warms my cold dead heart. Many requests have come through for other Deep Space Nine episodes, with the Cisco Dukat Showdown Waltz proving dominant. A lot of people want to get their waltz on. I'll get ready to start shouting the word evidence, I suppose. Evidence? Evidence! I'll work on it. Christopher Pike, that was your life. But there are still blank pages to be filled. We greatly look forward to you and the Enterprise crew boldly going once more, possibly having a little fun along the way.
Wherever our mission takes us, we'll try to have a little fun along the way too, huh? Make a little noise. Ruffle a few feathers.
Nothing but blue skies for you, Captain Pike. For now. Hit it.